Hi, my name is Peter Hinssen. I'm the author of The Day After Tomorrow. I want to talk about the shift that we see happening in the economy from nations to networks. We're seeing the rise of global network players, the Googles, the Amazons, the Facebooks, the Baidus, the Alibabas, the Hinssens. These are new network players that are emerging as the rising stars of the 21st century. And what is truly interesting about these network players is that they seem to have a different dynamic, but are seeming to have a different reach than we've ever seen before. In the last century, what we've seen is a tension between corporate life and countries, nations and corporations. And you can argue that maybe 200 years ago, nations were the dominant forms of economic strategy on this planet. But in the last century, we've seen the rise of global corporation, the Walmarts of this world, the Exxons of this world, who have become so powerful and so dominant that in many cases you can actually argue who has more power, a country, a nation, or a corporation. But what we're beginning to see in the 21st century with the rise of these network players is that they seem to be even at a different level. If you look at a company like Google or Alibaba, they're not just redefining global commerce or global insight. They are basically building up value, gathering information that is way beyond what any corporation and certainly what way beyond any nation really knows and understands. And you can start to argue who is actually more dominant and certainly more powerful. Look at what's happening, for example, in the world of cloud computing. Google and Alibaba both are prime examples of companies who are extremely involved in cloud computing. Amazon, one of the global players in e-commerce, is actually the largest cloud provider on the planet. But today, when corporations decide to actually put their data in a cloud provider, there are all these national legislation or legislations on a European level, for example, which are restricting the use of cloud computing. But in a world where technology allows you to put your data anywhere you want, why are we still bound by nationwide boundaries to dictate what is going to happen with information? We have to accept that in the 21st century, we're really getting into this networked economy. The 21st century is the network century. And what we're beginning to see is that these new network players are trying to figure out how they can actually evolve. But it basically means that the power and the dominance of nations is crumbling even faster. Certainly in Europe, for example, where we see that we have a patchwork of very small states, very small nations, with each their legislation, their regulation, which is trying to understand how we're going to expand that into a global network economy, we see that tension very, very clearly. To put it very simply, what happened in the last century was the rising tension between corporate power and nation power. But with the advent of network players, this is only going to aggravate the tension, and I think we have to rethink the role of nations in this network economy. A very exciting time ahead for policy and government, that's for sure.